Good evening.
Good evening.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Bell?
Here.
Councilmember Cousins?
Here.
Councilmember Fisher?
Yes.
Councilmember Knight?
Here.
Councilmember Michelle?
Present.
Councilmember Smith? Right now, both of our student reps are not here. Andy Colbert and Isabella Malik. Mayor Keto.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Jones. You're perfect. We have two sets of meeting minutes to approve this evening. One from the City Council work session on September 9th, and then our regular City Council meeting minutes from the 9th also.
I'll move both sets of minutes.
Moved by Smith,
I'll second.
second by Knight. Both. Mr. Smith, any comments?
I do not.
Ms. Knight?
I do have one comment. On page 5, I believe it was, when Mr. Cousins talked about the Chamber of Commerce meeting. I think it says it meets the last Monday of the month at 9 p.m.
That should be AM.
9 a.m.
Maybe they changed it again.
At the library.
Yeah, I'll fix that.
Good catch. Thank you.
Michelle, would you want
Any other council
to make
comments?
a correction?
Oh, yes,
Michelle has it, something that you'd like to.
I do, and I have to look it up in order to give it to you so that you all, so please bear with me. Okay, so when I gave my report during the regular meeting, there was a brief, but what I think was an important exchange regarding council's expectation and understanding of the city's role in the Dale Fisher project. Excuse me. Specifically that the city would participate in the project for $6,500, provided Mr. Fisher secured additional sponsors, and the payment of the $6,500 would be made upon proof that the book project was going forward. And that response from council had to do with a question that I believe Mr. Smith asked after my report was done, if I would make a comment on that. And that's what came out of that, so.
So what are you saying? You want that in the minutes?
I think it should be in the minutes, yes.
And I have,
Okay,
I have your email piece.
Okay, and I think what I responded to that was that we had previously voted to do the project, but there isn't a condition on the table at the present time. I mean, we voted it expired in like February. And we would have to react. So there's no, and I assume it would pass again, just be presumptuous in saying it, but there's nothing on the table that tells him that if he goes out and gets 4, we still have to act.
I'm sorry, when I looked at the minutes, I didn't see that there was an expiration. So, is that the understanding that it is?
My recollection was he wanted it by a date certain at that time. It was February something or other, or that time frame. So,
Okay, that's fine, as long as whatever, I just think that should be something in the minutes that was discussed and that was clarified. And if
so if we
the way
have,
you remember it is more accurate than what I generically put it, I'm fine with that. I just think it needs to be in the minutes.
you want the minutes to reflect what? That staff was not comfortable introducing Mr. Fisher to businesses related to the request for $400 for the book?
We could, if you wanted to add that part as well.
Or marketing.
Well, I need somebody to tell me what they wanted to say.
We're going to market.
I don't want to just approve thinking Carol's writing this up, is my point.
Well, I had sent Carol an email with very
That's
generalized.
her email, which she just basically.
She just
stated
wrote what
there.
she-
I just didn't attribute it to any particular people on council.
And I explained to Michelle, usually when there's questions one day before, they don't, we don't usually interview.
The part that is not, I'm gonna say yet true, is that specifically the city would participate in the project for $6,500 provided Mr. Fisher secured additional sponsor, and we didn't vote on that.
No, we didn't.
We gave him that indication.
That's actually in the minutes. I took that from the minutes.
Long ago.
From prior
From
meeting.
Oh, I guess I'm misreading that. like
Right,
that.
because I couldn't verbatim
Well,
regurgitate
Then why does
exactly.
it need to be in there again?
Because it's something that was asked and a question was answered, and I've had to follow up with Mr. Fisher, and I just thought it would be it was something that should be in the minutes, so that they could see it was discussed. It's not just me saying what came out of that meeting verbally. They had asked specifically that the staff asked or put it in the report, and you talked about it, so. It's up to council whether you want it in or not. I was just
I
making a
don't
suggestion.
think it needs to be in personally.
That's exactly why we shouldn't have any conversation in there, but that's a whole other story.
Say it again.
That's exactly why we shouldn't have any conversation in there at all, but that's a whole other story, so. Not on today's agenda.
You mean in the minutes?
Yeah, it's just supposed to be action, but.
Yeah. I think if that's the way it is before, that's out. All right, so I have a motion by Smith, second by Knight with one correction so far. Is council okay with not limiting, or not including what Michelle brought up, or does the members that think that's important?
Well, if Mr. Fisher wants to see, you can watch the video and see we did discuss it. There's a lot in these minutes that I would be happy to cut. Like, just so-and-so spoke about it, here's their name and address, instead of the details of what they said, because especially for citizens, they have no opportunity for us to correct what we thought they were saying. Yeah, so I'm okay without including it because we didn't take action. The previous one had expired, but I also understand staff's concern to show that, look, we really did talk about it.
I don't think it's reflected in her report too, so. Other thoughts? Okay, all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes with the one correction to the AM, PM, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. We have no prearranged participation. Item E is approval of the agenda, and I don't think there's anything on the table. Support. Moved by Fisher, second by Bell. Thank you both. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. We have no public hearings. We are down to non-arranged participation. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak this evening. If you wish to do so, please stand and state your name and address. Welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, please come to the podium if you would, please.
It's been a while.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you. And I'm sorry to what you might anticipate, I am not here as usual to praise Dan. And then, in fact, this may be late and moot, I don't know. So I start right off by saying I'm behind the eight ball on this.
Please introduce yourself and give us your name
I beg
officially
your
for,
pardon.
if you would, please.
Jim McCarter, live right up the street here, Hudson and Second. As you can see, I'm out of practice. I was taking advantage of my wood pile when the weather got a little colder recently, and this was part of the pile of paper there for you to use as kindling. I happened to read a letter to the editor in the Sun-Times that I hadn't read before regarding the issue of Avalon. So if it's still appropriate, certainly consider the letter refers to a change.org petition. I'd like to just say a few words about this, and this is entirely extemporaneous. I haven't got any prepared comment to hand to you. As some of you know, I'm an ex-school teacher in the district. If I were talking to the school board right now, 4 of the members had kids who went through my class. And I know, as a school teacher, the private fact that we have homeless children who come through Dexter schools. And I know that we have a lot of people who suffer from some of the things that are mentioned in this letter to the editor. In fact, particularly reminded of, because I just came from a church men's retreat this weekend. I happened to ask everybody would go along with a teacher's trick that I used to use, which was called Eyes Closed, No Cheats. I had everybody close their eyes, and I asked them to raise their hand if they had somebody in their family that had been directly affected by the precise things that the Avalon Housing Group addresses. And of the more than 50 people in the room, all but one raised their hand. I think that my reaction when I read this letter was, first off, that therefore I have some personal experience, knowledge of the need within our community. I was struck by the fact that one of the arguments in the letter to the editor cited risk to children when in fact children are at risk and are in the services of Avalon Housing. And that this is something that is targeted intentionally at some of the most vulnerable members of our community who are seeking and striving to overcome significant barriers that already exist within the nature of their struggles, let alone to not have a supportive community around them. So as I read this article, I was saddened by the idea that we might not recognize what I view really as our duty as citizens and as a community to support those who are most vulnerable. I don't know where this is. I know little more than this article, and following up based on one of the references in here to look at Avalon's actual site and do a little bit more research. That's as far as I got. And I know, based on what they said, that they're currently serving more than 750 people in 750 in 24, I think it is, facilities across the county, roughly. And that this is supported in board members and in donors and in many others by a broad range of very, very respectable and knowledgeable people. So as one voice, an up the road voice, over 25-year resident of this community voice, I say if you continue down the pathway that is indicated in supporting Avalon as a body, you've got my support. And I'm proud of you.
Thank you for your comments today.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Appreciate your time. Other members of the committee, would anyone like to speak this evening? Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name is Robert Murphy, and I live at 3713 Bristol Drive, Dexter Crossing. As the second voice, in reference to Avalon housing, or low income, or middle income, limited income. In Ann Arbor, I've been in both types of housing, and I know many people there. What I find ironic is this is the 21st century. In the 1930s, when I was in grade school, everyone lived in limited income housing, at least where we lived. And I think probably here in Dexter, you could say the same thing. And if someone asked me, I'd be willing to sell my house to somebody in Avalon Housing. And they could have 2 families because the basement finished, you could use the basement and the first floor. I mean, I'm not going to put a sign up or anything. You know, I think it's, I don't know, I guess I've been around too long or something. Isn't that terrible to say that? Got nothing to do, but you know, it's, I'm sure the people that have concerns have legitimate concerns, but what is it they say? The poor will always be with us. You know, today we're talking about Alzheimer's and dementia. This is the 21st century, and all of a sudden we recognize diseases of the mind, and there's no magic pill for that. And you know, it's supposed to be progress. So I guess I would recommend that you know, this is one issue you can't divert. You can't hire a consultant and come in and reestablish. So if I were you, I'd act on that pretty quickly and get it resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Other members of the public that would like to speak tonight? Okay, thank you for those comments. We have 2 communications in the packet this evening, our upcoming meeting list and our signed calendar. Any comments from council on either of those?
Well, the upcoming committee meeting list, it's the last Monday of the month, would be 9:30, I think we got that last time, so it's not 9:23, it's not the 4th, it's the last.
Oh, it's on there twice actually, Paul.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, Dexter Chamber of Commerce, September 30th at 9 a.m. Yeah, I think it's just on there twice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we crossed it off the wrong time then.
Yeah, it wasn't
I
today.
didn't see it the same.
Yeah.
Okay, now I see it, okay, good.
Yeah, so we're
Just on the 4th one down.
getting
Okay.
closer.
Thank you.
Other council comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to our first report tonight from our Public Services Superintendent. Welcome, Dan.
Good evening, Council. In your packet, you have my report. I'd like to start with a few updates on the ongoing projects that we have going on. The first one's on Forest Street, sidewalk and stormwater. I stopped up there today. They're still installing the stormwater main and putting manholes in. Last week, Friday, I did receive 2 or 3 really good comments on the city and OHM being able to talk to the residents, keep them updated, you know, as we're going through. I thought that was very important. Any questions on forestry?
No, that's good.
Central Street project today, they're finishing the curbs and they were pouring sidewalks. That seems to be going fairly well. They're still looking at the week of September 30th for asphalt, at least the wearing course. A few months ago, we put out our water report, or CCR report. In 2018, they changed some rules on that, and we missed the rule change. The previous years, we always have 1 or 2 that'll come in high on lead or high on copper. So we always go back to the residents, we go back over the sampling procedures, and 99.9% of the time, it's always a sampling procedure. So in the years past, when we'd resample and it came back fine for lead and copper, we were able to put that in the CCR. 2018 rule change, they want the samples that come in high in the CCR report. So what that means is we're going to have to go back, we had 2 of them, We're gonna have to go back, republish the CCR report, we're gonna have to send it to the Sun-Times, we're gonna have to run it on our email list, and we're gonna have to distribute it to all the businesses and hand it back out. And I can't tell you how sorry we are for missing that. But it is a new rule change. Any questions? Wastewater, we're looking at October 17th from 4 to 6 to do the open house down at the wastewater plant.
October what?
17th from 4 to 6.
4 to 6?
Yep.
Looking after work. About fine.
Are we having refreshments?
What's that?
Are we having refreshments?
Whatever you want, Paul.
That's the question.
I don't think we've worked out that amount of the details. We finally today,
Yeah, we're just trying to get the date.
trying to get everybody together.
Right, it's
It's
impossible.
tough. Yeah. And then my last update is on the wastewater project. We're looking at this week, Wednesday to Friday, asphalt and hydro seeding if weather permits. So that's the finish, basically.
That's great.
You know, I'm kind of hoping they're going to do the hydro seed first and the asphalt, but we'll see how it works out. We'll get one or the other. Any questions on my report?
You either have green pavement or black grass.
Well, I'm going to make sure that's taken care of.
So, Dan, remind me on your report, what's the billing going again?
That's what we clean up downtown, the sidewalks with, the gutters, it sucks up all the leaves and all that.
Okay.
It actually works quite well. I mean, I have to dump it quite a few times, but it does. It's
I
a
was
big
thinking
vacuum
these
cleaner.
machines
is what it
were-
is.
Yeah, that is, okay.
And DEA did approve a project to replace reset the bricks in front of the Monument Park building by Aubrey's. Kind of the last area of bricks we haven't taken co-catches out of, so that'll be done sometime this fall. So DEA is paying for that.
Questions for Dan on his report? Seeing none, next is our community development manager. Thank you very much, Dan.
Good evening, council. How are you doing this evening?
Good evening.
Excellent. All right, so you've got my report in front of you. Before I go into verbal updates, do you have any questions for me?
I do not.
Okie dokie. So, starting with the MDOT tourist destination signage, you remember both Encore and Jolly Pumpkin had indicated a desire to have that a little over a year ago. Because we were going through the roundabout construction at the time, the Jolly Pumpkin one was put on hold, but you went through the process and did approve a Trailblazer sign on Baker for Encore. Encore hasn't pulled the trigger yet on that, but they are still indicating that they want to have it put up. In the meantime, now that the construction is done, Jolly Pumpkin would like to re-engage with MDOT on that. And so what MDOT has, the logos, Michigan logos, Representative Nate Baker has indicated is based on our previous on-site meeting. He thinks that there's going to need to be 3 of those trailblazers. One would be on Baker Road, just before Dan Hoy, one on Dan Hoy before you get to Bishop Circle, and then one on Bishop Circle directing to Bishop Circle East. Not all 3 of those roadways are in the city. One of the one just before Dan Hoy would be Scioto Township, but that's county, and we'll have to deal with the county to see if that's something they will now embrace. You'll recall that before the county, that was not something they embraced, but there are new people, so it may be something they're willing to consider. But are you willing to consider 2 signs in Dexter's Road right-of-way to make this project, or allow this project to go forward? Michigan Logos would like to have some, even if it's just a verbal yay or nay, before they go through the whole process.
That would be 2 signs for each business? Two for
No, this
Encore,
would
two
be
for Jolly Pumpkin?
two signs for Jolly Pumpkin.
What about Encore?
I don't-
Encore's already done. I just brought them up as a reminder of what came before you before.
And where would they be located then?
So the one would be on Baker Road on the east side probably before you got to the roundabout, so before you even get to Walkabout Creek.
That's one, that's
That's the county's right away. The second one would be before Bishop Circle, so somewhere in front of MC3's side of the street. And then once you turned onto Bishop Circle, before you got to Bishop Circle east-west, there would be another one.
So that's actually just one in the city limits.
2. Dan Hoy
Industrial
and
Park.
Bishop Circle.
Thank you.
My only concern is putting a bunch of signs everywhere, so trying to get these signs attached to other posts or things that we've already got in place so we don't have a bunch. And I know it's tricky because they have their guidelines, it needs to be X number of feet from an intersection, but I remember with the Encore, there was some flexibility for them to mount it on something that they normally wouldn't do.
Right. I don't believe there's any infrastructure on the Bishop Circle portion. There might be an existing sign on Dan Hoy of some sort, but we certainly would take that into consideration. That was actually something that Nate had brought up because he did remember that as well.
There's no type of a directory for within the industrial park.
No, sir, not at this time. And none that is contemplated. The other thing to make sure we're all clear on, these trailblazers are associated with the directory that's on the freeway coming up to an off-ramp and then on the off-ramp. So these trailblazers, it's not just something that anybody can apply for. They're only associated with those businesses that would have and are paying to have their business advertised on those signs.
And I got real knee-deep in this type of stuff, so these aren't considered off-site commercial advertising or commercial message signs. They're approved as part of the manual on uniform traffic control devices, so they're consistent across the state and the country generally when you do these types of things.
Anybody object to what's being proposed? I think we're okay for 2 signs, Michelle.
Okay, thank you,
Do the best you
appreciate it.
can to place them on another sign if there's one available.
Right, this will come before you with a map, just like it did with Encore.
Okay.
So you know exactly where these things will go, so that when you approve it, you know what you're approving before it goes forward. Okay, we received a correspondence from the Ann Arbor Economic Development Corporation. They are looking at sitting down with the various economic development corporations throughout Washtenaw County. Obviously, the city of Dexter does have one. And they're looking for ways that together they can, with all of our assistance, come up with ways that we can help each other out. What collaborative processes might we engage in to help utilize each other's resources and abilities to improve economic development in Washtenaw County. So, the letter that was provided, I'm emailing it to Jim Carson since he's the president of your EDC, and then we'll go from there to see just how many other representatives from the various EDCs across Washtenaw County want to sit down. We'll come up with a meeting, and then I'll come back and tell you all about it. Last update basically on this is to the 3075 Baker Road, that development. excuse me, one of the things that I wasn't sure of when this report was prepared for you was if the applicant was actually going to end up going forward.
Looks like they are.
They are going forward. So yes, there's work that's happening out there. She's now, at least for the time being, understanding what her process is if she wants to divide the property, whether that's a simple land division or a condo, and what process she's going to have to do. But she could do absolutely nothing, and it continues to go just as it is. So it's moving forward. That's, I guess, the good thing. Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
No, thank you for your report, thank you. We do have the sheriff's report in the packet. Anybody have any comments on the sheriff's report? Questions for Courtney?
A lot of suspicions in Westridge.
It's kind of a catch-all,
Suspicious
overall.
activity.
sort of calls that they get, that don't have another.
None on Bristol.
So far.
Okay, we're down to city manager report.
I had in the report for a few weeks about the bike rack issue that was raised by Beer Grotto, and DDA discussed that at the meeting Thursday, and they didn't like the idea of moving forward the way we thought we were going to with the bike rack, expanding the one behind the Dairy Queen, so they would like to look at it and find some other locations that they think would be more utilized than that one, so that's probably not going to happen quite the way that it was described in the report. The Grand Street project, we were supposed to have the public meeting, but we pushed that back because we really hadn't gotten settled on a design yet, so hopefully we can bring that to council so you guys can see what we're thinking at the first meeting in October, and then we'll schedule the public meeting, so pushes the timeline back a little bit, but not significant, since I think that project's going to be best to start after school, since there's less traffic and kids and stuff. I talked about the new signal timing at Meadowview and Dexter and Arbor, that we were going to try a 4-way red with a no-turn sign so that the kids that are crossing can kind of get a head start with no traffic moving. So we're going to put that into effect on Thursday while the kids are in school. So we have some new signage and no turn on red signs during certain hours, and I think it's a 4-second sort of head start that they'll get with everything red, just to try it, and then we'll see if that helps. Because one of the concerns seemed to be people coming out of the Mill Creek driveway and turning right quickly to try to beat the kids that were walking in the crosswalk towards them. So this way they'll have a head start, and then the third car, which is probably fine for the first 2 cars, but then the third car didn't know there were kids in there, and that was creating a problem. So this way the kids will have the head start, the first car can't turn on red, can't turn when the light turns green. It'll be red with a no turn on red for a certain period of time, and then their light will turn green and they can go, but they'll have to wait for the kids in the crosswalk. So they'll be able to see them, I guess. So we'll see, hopefully that works out a little better. The scarecrows, I don't know if anybody has any comment on that, but I think last year we talked about potentially leaving the scarecrows up, and they had requested that from the Appleys, so we were thinking kind of concentrated in Monument Park, maybe some downtown. I don't want them to turn into a mess, but I think last year they looked good.
Dexter City does that on all their posters. They're like in riddle.
Yeah.
You can see them really well
I
from
think they
your
were
car.
pretty cute last
Or
year.
get out and walk.
Is there, back to the bike rack for a second?
Mhm.
Is there any reason why we can't place the one bike rack while we study this?
You can't, what did you say?
Well,
I didn't hear what you said.
isn't there any reason why we can't order the bike rack and place it up behind the Dairy Queen where the other one is? and see how much use it gets while we study other locations?
The DDA did not support that.
So, I mean, I guess I can do it anyway, but I'm trying to be respectful.
You'd end up with an extra pad expense too, right? If you wanted to move
No,
it.
There's already concrete there.
there were a
Oh,
couple
okay.
of things that they said. One of the things that was said was that people who bike, not everyone, but some of the DDA members did know people who bike in Dexter and they don't like to park their bikes far from where they're going to be, especially because their bikes are very expensive. The other concern they had with the bike rack behind Dairy Queen is that there's already one there and that doesn't seem to be helping. So the quote was, why would we expand something people aren't utilizing to begin with? So what I gleaned from their discussion was they looked at it as sort of a short-term and a long-term approach. Study short-term, could a bike rack be placed behind that little fence with the parking entrance sign adjacent to Beer Grotto instead of flowers being there? And the longer term would be studying all of the appropriate places within the downtown to have bike racks, and to also work with the ACH on something that combined both the form and the function. So something that was art, but also provided the bike racks that are needed. So that was the outcome of the discussion.
Here's a potentially controversial thing. We closed the nearest parking space to the sign and put bike racks there.
I'm sorry?
The closest parking space to the sign, right when you turn into the parking lot on the right-hand side, we use that for bicycle parking. The city of Ann Arbor has a bunch of temporary things they put out in the summer.
In parking, I did throw that out to them. They did not like that idea.
Because one single parking space that could have instead of 8 bicycles.
It was not something they saw as, I can't remember the exact word, but my interpretation was they didn't find that as an appropriate solution as what they had come up with.
I mean, I guess we can just,
That's kind of how it is.
so we can just rip out that flower bed, which is not what I wanted to do. But
I
if that's what they want us to
understand
do, then unless they
Is
take
that
care of it.
what's gonna happen? What about the
Well,
phone?
I mean, that's what they want. They want the bike rack behind that sign, so.
And they would end up paying for it.
That was where one person suggested it could go, and Courtney's efforts were to try and find a spot in the same vicinity
Right, that didn't,
that didn't require taking out green space, and that's where we went, to the adjacent property owner, figuring that was a common destination for kids and other people that ride bikes. Seems like a logical spot for a bike rack. I'd like to understand the validity of it's not being used, because I don't think that's my observation. But
Because people are parking their
I'm
bikes.
sure we'll study
as we
that
saw in
also.
as we saw in the picture, people are parking their bikes adjacent to the sidewalk and not using a bike rack.
well, we talked
you
about
have one
putting,
picture, you could
I-
take pictures of the
I-
bike rack full too.
we talked about putting a sign on it that said it was public, because that was one thing Mike Holzer said was, it looks like it's just Dairy Queen only, so we said we'd put a sign on it that said public, like
I would
parking only.
agree with the DDA members' comments. I'm not going to park my $800 road bike behind Dairy Queen where there are a bunch of kids out of my sight. I'm not doing that. So I can understand the hesitation.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing is the Tyndall letters. Any comments on those? I think I have to submit those by the 1st or 2nd of October. Kind of broke them into 2, one that was provided by the Watershed Council and one that Andrea authored. They were reviewed by F&B. The attorney reviewed them too and made minor comments, but nothing. Our Tyndall attorney, I should say, and he didn't have any substantive.
I I appreciate the standard letter. You're saying the first letter is written by the Watershed Council?
Yeah, I mean, I added some stuff at the end and City of Dexter.
Well, I don't have any problem submitting a letter, but I think we should try to personalize it a little more. I mean, I think our focus should be on the fact that we got a whole project permitted less than 24 months ago at under one limit, and they just completely changed it. I mean, that's not good government.
In the second order, but I can add it to the first if you want it in both.
Well, I think it should reference that. If you want to push the second letter with more detail, that's fine, but I don't like the third paragraph. I don't think we should pick on another user in the district. And I don't think it's good to say we don't want, essentially say we don't want any other development either. I mean, there is no room for new phosphorus sources is a pretty strong statement. I don't, perhaps,
Well, they didn't-
I don't agree with that.
Right, but they didn't build in new room in the 10-bill draft. There's
Well,
no room.
maybe they should.
Right, they could, it's just the point being that they didn't. So I can just take out that paragraph, I don't think the state's gonna give any thought to anything we submit anyway.
Well, I know, but when they see the same letter over and over, it makes you wonder what people actually thought themselves.
Well,
I think we should write a letter that...
I'm not smart enough to write this letter myself, so
I'm not
I
picking
tried
on
to
you.
use the resources that we had to do the best that I could, so I'm happy to take out that paragraph and I will add more information about our project. And that's all I can really do. Unless, I mean, you want me to have OHM write it or something, I don't know enough
Well,
about
we do
it.
have people with
Nor do I
knowledge
really
on
want
that.
to pay hundreds of dollars for something that probably no one's gonna read.
Courtney and I'm trying to help with the letter. I don't have a problem sending the letter.
Whatever, that's all right.
I think we
Take
should,
out the
I think
paragraph and add the
I think
additional.
it would be more appropriate to focus on, you know, the out-to-date models and the fact that we just did our, you know, had our project permitted. The history of the whole entire wastewater treatment plant is helpful, but I think we should stress that.
I forgot my own that.
What's the deadline for submittal of comments?
I want to say it's the 1st or 2nd of October. It was extended 30 days from the original date. I'm not, I have it somewhere, I don't have it.
I just think that, you know, this whole area is a very desirable place to live. It just, when we make a statement like that there's no room for new sources, I mean, we really should be stressing, focus on the non-point ones, and some of the other things should be highlighted, I think, first. I don't know.
I've said that.
I know, I'm just giving you comments. I'm happy to help modify it or whatever. Paul?
I don't have a problem with putting solar farms in the grounds, okay? That was, you know, we are talking about potential development outside of town here, it's gonna have the same thing. And they talked about that, that's what their answer is to it. So why would we put up a red flag and say, hold it, before we even think about doing that? We've got a problem with one already that doesn't meet it, and you're asking that there could be, there's potential another one that's gonna be dumping into the same water source. It's time that we stand up and say to people, hold it, enough is enough in our water resource, and we can't continue to drop it down just at your whim.
Well, we can make that the focus, that's fine.
And that's what happened.
Certainly is. It's just easier.
Now, we got a lot of big shooters with us. We got, you know, Ipsy and Arbor and a few other people that are bigger than we are, but we ought to be able to say something along with our line. I don't have a problem with adding something to it. It makes it, you know, more important that we just 24 months ago put something down and now it's changed.
Right.
Point the finger back at them. I don't have a problem with that at all, but I don't have any problem at all. We've been putting farms in there.
Well, we can just,
Well, they aren't out of compliance now. I just think, I don't know why we would pick on somebody else. Our angst or our focus should be on the DEQ or the Eagle or whatever they call themselves today.
We can update the language. I think the only other thing is, October 14th, we'll have a work session on the fire station design. And hopefully I'll have some more of the feedback on the city office location stuff. I didn't push David too hard for that because we were working on the fire station stuff, but we can include that with that work session as well. Jason Miller really been helpful to have. He's had some good ideas and he's has a construction background and he's been a good addition to that. So.
Regarding the city office one, I emailed you a question that I had, looking for additional information about the red line space.
Yep, we'll include that. I think we have that build-out number, but it's probably old, so I'll update that.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'll reply to that later today.
I didn't know whether they supplied any type of dimensional.
I think we probably have that from their build-out when they did their changes for the name.
Thank you.
Other questions for Courtney? Okay, thank you. I have nothing major to add in my report other than I had fun at the Sons on the River event. A good time had by all, I think.
So does Scott, so did Paul, and you, a few others, so.
Look forward to next year already. We did have a conference call to discuss our MML opportunity on the incorporation with the folks from MML, excuse me. So Courtney and I will be going up there next Friday. Jim?
When we're done with yours, I want to go back to Courtney.
Go ahead.
On page 33, regarding the property purchase, talking about the whether to seek the reimbursement from the bond proposal. And you said the resolution would need to be done in the first meeting in October. So I thought we should discuss that. Decide do we want to do that or do we just not?
You want a specific item on the agenda?
Well, it says it needs to be done by the first meeting in
October.
are you talking about tonight's agenda?
No, October 14th, the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, the resolution would have to be in that packet if we were going to consider it.
But I didn't know whether we wanted to discuss tonight, whether we do want it on the agenda or not.
I say yes. Having it on there doesn't oblige us to recuperate, but it allows it. It's good to have options.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions for me on anything? Okay, we're down to consent agenda.
I move we approve the three items listed on the consent agenda. Bills and payroll in the amount of $382,605.69. The closure of Central for Apple Days, October 5th, and the setting of a public hearing for the face-to-face facilities tax exemption request.
Motion by Ms. Fisher. Support. Second by Mr. Bell. Ms. Jones, please call the vote.
Michelle?
Yes.
Knight? Smith?
Yes.
Bell?
Yes.
Fisher?
Yes.
Cousins?
Yes?
Keo?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. We have no old business. So down to new business item L1, which is a consideration of the purchase and installation of an industrial park sign from Signs in One Day for not to exceed $16,000.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Smith and second by Michelle. Thank you both. Courtney?
I don't really have anything to add.
Well, and my understanding is we have to have a park assigned for the industrial park, or whatever park it's being called nowadays, in order to be qualified as the fancy pants for the state, certified industrial park.
Okay. I appreciate the work everybody's done to find a spot that works.
Yeah, hopefully it works out. I think we'll clean up that corner a little bit with those bushes that aren't that. And we'll get rid of those and maybe put some landscaping around it in the spring.
Okay. Any further comments or need for discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll, Mrs. Jones.
Bell?
Yes.
Cousins?
Yes?
Michelle?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Fisher?
Yes.
Knight?
Yes.
Keel?
Yes. Motion carries. New business item L2 is discussion of the Mast Road property.
We have quite a bit of information in the packet on this topic, and council has heard of this, I mean, has kind of heard of this discussion before, but as things are progressing a little bit quicker, just don't want to get too far ahead of the group as far as people's interest and thoughts about this project. It is a piece of property that's outside the city. It could potentially provide connection to the Huron River. Kind of came up because when when the road commission was having a parking problem, people using the right-of-ways there to park, to put in, and we don't quite hear about that as much now. I'm not sure why that is. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. You know, it is something we could seek a trust fund acquisition grant for that would have a 25% match. I know the Watershed Council's talked about providing fundraising potentially to help with that match. They're much better at that than we are.
You know, 2 cents on the river.
Right, yeah, and the proceeds. My concern is just, you know, is the city going to be owning this piece of property? Are we then developing it and maintaining it? And it's a little overwhelming to think about having yet another thing in the station for us to maintain. So I just want to make sure that we know what you want our level of support to be, because these meetings come up quickly and not everyone understands that sometimes, you know, we have to go back to a larger group. You know, we can't just be making decisions and offers and things. It just doesn't work that way for us, so.
It's an issue that needs some structure.
Yeah.
Paul and then Scott.
I've been involved in this. I want to let you know that the audience, Rebecca Elsman is here. She's our new director of the River Watershed Council. If you haven't met her, I think you probably met her because she was the one that brought the attention to us about the issue of road coal tar on our driveways. And so, and she's a resident of the city, and she's here to provide background information. We have met with the owner of this property. We've had conversations on the phone. There will be additional viewing of this property tomorrow by a bank to look at the assessment of it. So we'll continue that process, but I appreciate Courtney bringing us up to date because things are moving fast on the property. Should let you know that it has been up and been advertised, and now with the realtor, and now it's been withdrawn, and it's potentially going to go back up with the realtor if we don't make some moves. And I say we collectively, I say the we, okay? And that is, we have a short string. Best I can describe, okay?
Is there a committee?
Hold on, Scott was next.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up, Scott.
So, I don't have the materials in front of me because my computer died. But I remember, I think it may have been in a prior community development reports, that there's a report of a site walk and a description of how one would access the river from this property. And I seem to remember there being some concerns. So the property is directly adjacent to the raceway, or whatever that is called. Thank you. But not adjacent to the river itself, and that there was no direct I mean, if someone wanted to put into the river, there was concern about how they would get there from this property to the river. Am I remembering this correctly?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So can someone explain how that would happen?
So one of the
Is there new
things,
information?
since that first time it was in your packet, Barry Lonnie had followed up and said that that particular stretch between the property and Huron River, just before Mast Road, is swift and it's tricky in high water. It might be a decent put-in location, but may not be suitable as a takeout location. But one of the things that I had identified when I wrote to you in my report initially was it would need to be something that is studied as part of this, as well as the ownership. Remember, we're using a GIS map that is broadly defining where HCMA property is in relation to the different properties. So I'm pretty sure that the portion coming from the property down to the Mast Road is probably within the Huron-Clinton Metro Park Authority's ownership, and they've identified that they're willing to work with Huron River Watershed Council, City of Dexter, et cetera, Washtenaw County. But it's going to have to be part of an overall study to know exactly how feasible it is to be able to utilize that.
So Scott, then I'll come right back to you. Let me finally back on this question.
Go ahead, Scott.
So at the Sons on the River event, I actually talked to Rebecca a little bit about this. And one of the concerns I had, based upon that map that Michelle had provided at a previous time, with the yellow dotted line showing the property and it not touching the river, was I said, I think because we have it in our parks master plan, and because we've talked about the importance of potentially having access to the river from our town, similar to how we have it to Mill Creek, I'm interested in doing this because I realize it's an opportunity cost. But unless we were going to be given an easement from HCMA, who's the one between our property and the river, I'd want to have that in hand if we formally went forward with the purchase. And there was actually an email that was sent, I think earlier today or over the weekend, from, I forget who at the HCMA.
Amy McMillan.
What was it?
From Amy McMillan at the Huron-Clinton Metro Park Authority.
Okay, and what's her title again? Can't remember.
She's the director.
She's the director.
So she indicated that, if you want to read it, you can.
No, I was going to give it to you. If you
No,
want.
go ahead, just read it.
So, as Sean had said, Amy McMillan, she's the director for the Huron-Clinton Metro Park Authority. Rebecca, the Metro Park has been involved in the community conversation regarding the safety concerns at the intersection of Mast Road and Huron River Drive for the past few years. And we are supportive of the development of a dedicated public paddling launch on the Mast Road property in question. We will move forward with surveying the Metro Park's owned portion of the riverfront by the end of October. We hope to come up with an agreement on a sufficient easement granting public access to the river at this location as plans evolve. So
Right.
That indicates that, at least there's no problem crossing their land to get to the river. I assume there'd have to be some type of improvement, Scott.
Right.
Rather significant. I mean, if the scale of this map is anything, there's quite a ways to the actual river from the property. But to the public, it's all going to look as one. I mean, they're not going to see, property owner and HCMA. They're just going to see expanse from the road back, right? So, I mean, if there's a way to have an easement agreement in place of some type, or some agreement that was headed in that direction, I'd be in favor of going after trust fund money. And now what we have to do to, for the property owner, who's patiently waiting for us to evaluate this opportunity, that's really the question, I think, is how do you get past, that? Because you're essentially asking them to wait almost a year, because the applications aren't due until April, and they don't even decide for another, 4, 5, 6 months anyway, right?
Oh.
I mean, it'd be a year ago, it'd be a year from now before we'd even know something.
And would the trust fund cover plan and?
Yes.
call
Site
it.
development?
First you
Well,
have
First
to
to land.
I think you'd go with land first.
They have two different grant programs. The acquisition
What's the
grant tends to be pretty fully
We're gonna
funded.
tell you that tomorrow sometime.
Well,
Somebody did.
well,
That's
I mean, it's,
That's a great.
you know, from Scott, I think the city is the most logical owner. If it isn't HCMA, I think it's the city, from my perspective. But I don't know where HCMA stands on even wanting to own it. I mean, they are trying to get everybody to go to their other parks, into the parks. I don't know why they would want to offer necessarily a site right here that isn't through their parks. I don't know what Amy's philosophy or anybody at the park system is on that, but, you know, if we did own it, you know, does it take priority over phase 3 of our trail system? Does it take priority over connecting to the trail at Dexter City? You know, in terms of the priorities system for general funds, we sort of need to ask ourselves the question, where would the development of this fall in line? I think the opportunity to get the property provides you the opportunity to then discuss what's the priority. And I think that's what's really in front of us, is it's the question of whether or not the person wants to put it back on the market, or do we take advantage of the fact that they're relaxing their timeline to allow us to jump in. I cut off Don, so Don, I'll let you go.
No, I'm just wondering if there's a committee, did we set a committee for this, or are we part of a master committee? Because of all the things that are coming up now, I'm wondering, well, who's going to decide?
Who's what?
Well, if we decide to purchase the property, council has to decide if we're the ones purchasing it. But yeah, so staff is participating, Paul is multiple members, you know, because he's on the watershed council.
Okay.
And that was years ago, it started, I think, and then it kind of quieted down, and then now it's ramped
I
back
remember
up.
talking about it.
Yeah. So it's been on and off. Michelle's, I think, has been the most consistent city participant besides Paul.
Somebody else, I'd like, if you would, not mind, like Rebecca to speak to this, so, because she has a very clear understanding how this is and how she feels could work, so if Rebecca would do that, we also have another member of the community here that she'll probably introduce here, so we'll be able to see how this can all put together here, so.
Yeah, I'm Rebecca Esselman. I'm the new executive director of the Fair River Watershed Council. Nice to meet you all, those of you that I haven't met yet. I was with the Watershed Council for 7 years prior to this role, so as Paul mentioned, you may have seen me with our pavement zone work. I'm joined by Bill Kinley, who is also interested in this project and is a longtime supporter of the Watershed Council and the River Up project in Water Trail. I'm happy to provide answers to any questions you have that I may have additional information on. But yeah, we are, Courtney's correct, and Sean as well, that we're in a situation now that we've been given a bit of a grace period to put something in front of the property owners before they put it back on the market for whomever to purchase. And what I would like to have an understanding of from City of Dexter. I think there's two scenarios. One is where we move forward with an offer where the City of Dexter is the immediate and ultimate owner. And then the other scenario is we try to identify an intermediate holder and Dexter be the ultimate owner if Dexter does want to hold this property and develop it, which I think it'd be a gem of a property. In the discussions we've had, it has a lot of potential for both the city, for the water trail, for the border-to-border trail, for parking relief, lots of different benefits. But that, we're trying to pull together an offer for the property owners. We've asked for a little extra time, and a little extra time is October 4th, so this is really right around the corner, and I understand that that's a very tight timeline in which to make a decision. But that is what we're looking at. We have a real estate agent who's working with us this week to develop an offer, and we have 2 windows of time. We put the offer in front of them. It'll list out our contingencies, and this is where we can say, you know, that the sale's contingent upon various factors, you know, getting a formal easement from HCMA, having somebody come out and study, make sure that there actually is a safe launch place. You know, we can do some of that legwork, but it would ensure that the city of Dexter would end up with a developable site and give us a little bit more time to have all the pieces come together. That window is 3 months after the offer. That's kind of what we're looking at as far as timeline.
Is the bank person that Paul mentioned, is it an appraisal that's
An
happening?
appraisal, yeah.
Appraisal right now.
That's happening tomorrow.
And they have, generally put their bank person out there, rather than us have to pay for appraisal.
For me, part of deciding to buy, not buy, what to do is who takes care of it? What's the responsibility? Like, have I got a parking lot that I'm gonna take care of, or mowing or trimming, or are we gonna have a staff person? Or would it be devoted, that care would come from the parks? Who will take care of those things?
I don't think any of that's been determined. I mean,
Right, but I think that I need to know if that's gonna cost me to do that, and if I'm responsible for that before I think I wanna make a decision about purchase.
okay.
Not specifics, but I need to know what, it could be this, could be that, these are some scenarios, because, do you want it, Dan? One more thing for you.
It's actually closest to their facility for mowing and such.
Everything else.
That's how the driveway, right?
You take the Z-turn road anyway.
Well, I mean, right now, there's a house on it, and as I understand it, there's a barn on it, right? I've not been in either of those. You know, like I said, that you can't really use it today to get to the river. It would be, you know, dangerous, I think, or not, there's not a clear path, I don't think. I mean, under certain water levels, you might be able to get to the raceway and then be lucky enough to get to the river, but it probably wouldn't be open for use. I mean, until we had the opportunity to develop it, which could be years down the road unless it all of a sudden rises to the top of the project chain.
Well, and I imagine the trust fund with the acquisition grant would make you put some sort of timeline on it, because I don't know if they're gonna, I don't know if they do or not, but I would think that they probably don't want you to acquire a lot of things that you don't have serious plans for.
Have we talked about the house and the barn, what that would be used for? Or we just want the piece of property?
The acquisition grant would make you basically tear down anything on there that wasn't
Okay.
park related eventually, like you can't, that is in there, I did read that.
Okay.
But it could be at least until we have some further direction, okay? I mean, that there's somebody living there now, okay? We think that, well, we heard that person could stay instead of live there again, you know, with a new owner and such. So it's not, or we can find somebody else maybe that would go and do that. The barn is I think they call it a kit barn. It's not a structure barn that was designed to be a barn, but it's a kit barn. It's left for storage, mowing machines. What else was in there? Canoe, a kayak, things like that there. And when we were in there looking at it, okay. It's got a hay loft or a office space, depending on what you want to put it in there above it. It's just a bar, top of the barn, so and we can see the hay in there, anything else, it's just an open space up there at the top there. The critical part is, and I should let you know, there are 5 people involved in it, 5 family members. The mother passed away 5 years ago, and she promised that, made the kids promise that they would not sell or do anything in it for 5 years, so that they had a clear understanding of what they wanted to do and not just sell it right outright or do something dumb with it, she said. Okay. So that 5-year period is up. They did put it on the market for a while, and that expired about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now. And we've had discussions with her and met with her, and I have a good relationship with her, that I can have this discussion. That they have been willing to give us an extension till we make a decision. And the first part of it, there was a two-part of that, and one of them was this opportunity to see how serious we were and see if we could come together and see if we really could do that. When I say we, this is collectively, it's the Washington Council been the leader in it, this process, but it has been with discussion with HCMA and Washington Parks will be brought in, Gary Lonnie, and Land Preservation Trust here in the township would be involved in it as well, has been involved in it as well, and Washington County Parks has had some interest in the past. We haven't re-explored theirs in the future. Kind of concentrate on the east side. So we have until the 28th. My calendar's off now, but anyway, until next week to make this period of time, which we asked for an extension until October the 5th, and they've indicated that would happen. Okay, they could get us that October the 5th date, so 1 week more, and then we asked for 3 months after that to come up with an actual. So there are, as I said, 5 members. 3 of the members of the family want to sell it right now. 2 are willing to be patient and willing to, I guess the best way to describe it is adhere to their mother's vision of having it be a park and be attached to the island across the trace there, the water trace. And she had this as a vision, I think, for many years and has brought that forth to the family, but that's why she made her wait for 5 years to do anything with it. Okay. It's critical that we, in my opinion, say we're willing to participate knowing that there is a new way out there, that we have to solve a lot of problems with the city. I'm one of those that just like Donna, when we look at putting additional parks in and additional trails in and the maintenance of those things, sure, let's just put another trail in, let's just add another trail, another mile trail, and we forget that there's maintenance with that and other things that go along with that. So we can't just willy-nilly throw those things out there and say we're going to do them with no thought process and no potential way to figure out how we're going to do that. But there are other ways that can be solved. There can be with HCMA, who comes by there every day with all their equipment on 2 different parks. One with Hudson Mills and one with Huron. So there's a lot of opportunities for this to be there. I think what we need tonight is, do we have a desire, as indicated in the master plan of the park commission, to do that? Those decisions have been at least outlined for us in the master plan, which you have in front of you, and what those have been indicated. And they didn't have answers when they made that either. They didn't have answers how they were going to, that those were all going to be solved either. But it's a way that we can move forward in this process and say, yes, we'll, under certain conditions, move forward. And it's going to take some trust. But if we don't get it now, that piece of property will be gone, and there's no sense of us even putting it in our plan, because it won't be a park, it'll be a residence.
Julie?
Paul, do we know, is there any other parties that have shown interest in purchasing it? Are we?
Yes, they've already had an offer, and that offer was rejected by them, but I understand from Mrs. Wesley, who's the old elder of the family here, that they have to place that offer back on the table, and they will place it back on the table again when they know from the family that it's available. So there are interested parties, and there was one interested party, and they backed off of it.
I definitely think we should continue to explore it, but there's an awful lot of pieces that have to come together here. And if our goal is that we want to be able to have the canoeists and the tubers and the boaters stop there so they can come into our city to use it, to go to the cider mill or come to the city to do things. That's key, but we definitely have to work with HCMA on this because it's a difficult site to get back and forth with canoes and tubers and the road commission as well, you know.
And get your canoe uptown.
What's that?
And to get your canoe uptown. You need a place to put it.
And I think we should continue to look at it, but I don't know, there's an awful lot of pieces that have to come together.
If I may, so I just want to state that the Watershed Council will commit support to you all throughout the whole process. So for fundraising, for acquisition, doing all of the kind of orchestration of the players, making sure we have road commission on board, we have HCMA, we have permits required, also fundraising on development. It's not something that we can manage, so that management piece is definitely for, needs to be considered, the long-term maintenance of the site. However, everything up to that point, we are with you guys 100% and we'll do a lot of the legwork to make sure that the property is acquired and developed in a way that it's a minimal financial burden to the city, and we can help with a lot of the legwork and just staff time on it.
Scott, I think you had your hand up, and Dan, I know, wants to say something, so I'm not sure whether.
Quick question.
Yep.
What was the previous listing price?
It's up for $419.
Zach, why don't you go, Dan?
I was just wondering, who owns the property on the Zebra by the river there? They put a little parking spot there, and I've seen canoes going up and down, so is the parks worked with the road commission for that little pull-off, or who owns that?
That's Washington County Parks, I believe, the one that's across from the...
Swingsters old build?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway, I didn't know if that would help. I don't.
That's Washington County Parks.
Is it? Okay.
So the direction I provide is that I'm very supportive of pursuing this project. One, the simple one that's in our plan is that we want to get some access to the river. Also, one of our priorities has been to try to maximize the grants and other funds that we get, and being able to turn $1 into $4 is pretty magical. As mentioned, the funds for purchasing property are very well funded and not as competitive as others because there aren't that many folks out there buying property to do parks with, as you would suspect. It's actually been a whole challenge for them the past decade or two of, we got this money, what are we going to do? It will also help alleviate some potential traffic issues there if there are a bunch of cars with people trying to schlep canoes and kayaks around. I think that's good. I also think it's nice that your entrance into town is going to be a park. Another thing we've been trying really hard to do is improving quality of life, and this would be a very easy access once we get the HCMA access easement sorted out to get into the Huron River versus going to Mill Creek and navigating downtown and going through all that. And the easier it is for folks to get on the river, the more folks will be on the river and the more they'll be concerned about water quality and those types of things. Just you're there, you see it, you care more. Now, I don't know that we'll be able to develop it real quickly, or know all the details. We have staff who's very good about those. When we started on Mill Creek Park, we didn't even know where the trail is going to go along the current section until a couple months ago. But it was a project that started many, many years ago. So I too am aware that there are a lot of things that need to be sorted out, but if we don't act on it now, it'll be gone and we won't be able to do it. So my direction is I highly support us working on this.
So who is it that would be crafting this condition letter? I won't quite even call it an offer letter yet, but the letter with all the conditions. Who's the architect of that or the first draft of that?
So we have a real estate agent that is working with us on that can provide that. What I envision is we would get the key partners in a room together with this agent work with him to identify what an offer needs to say and figure out what we have to say on those things and craft something that everybody's comfortable with.
So in the best scenario of timing, the applications are due in April, is that right?
Correct.
And then we-
April 1st.
Okay, thank you. And then typically they announce it by what, October?
They'll typically announce around October, then you don't actually get the final confirmation until December, I believe.
So is there a way that somebody could ask them what a year's worth?
What?
What's a year's worth to delay?
How much would
Oh,
it take to get
Like,
that?
what would it cost to get them to wait on their decision, knowing that we, you know, would pursue a path of, you know, that type of application and
I guess we could try that, I don't know.
well, I'm sure there's people smarter than I that have written conditions, but I mean, is there a modest amount of money that would hold the property?
Bill might have something to offer on this if you guys.
Does this sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
If you want to listen to a little brainstorming, from what I understand from the folks that have talked to this family so far, probably a delay for purchase isn't going to work. However, I have reason to believe there are some folks, private individuals, who would be willing to help out for a year delay as long as there was some certainty of purchase at the end. I don't know whether the application to the state would be questionable. If it wouldn't work, and at the end of the year there were no purchase by the Dexter, that would be a little bit less certain and a little more problematic for people who are buying it as an interim buyer. But I think just a delay to the sellers, if I were in that position, I would say, no, we already have another offer coming in. So I'm asking folks that are around here, I'm just coming up as a volunteer, questioning, is there certainty after that year period? Would there be the possibility of certainty that Dexter would purchase it? Is the delay just to get to the formality of having the grant application accepted?
Well, I don't think you can assume that we're going to get the grant. That's the hard part.
And we just spent a large chunk of our reserve on another piece of property, so it would be hard for us to guarantee that we would have.
419,000 available.
Right.
Oh, I understand that. I would have assumed that's the normal case of these grants. I'm just looking for what mechanism there might be, because this is such a desirable parcel. It sounds like for both Dexter, the Watershed Council, and just all the users involved, is there a way to make that some certainty? I'm coming up just guessing, just as you are, what might work. I will say that, as I understand it, if this offer were crafted to meet the deadline of time for the next couple of weeks, whatever that is that Paul has mentioned, the expectation is that offer would contain a due diligence period. Correct me if I'm wrong, that is potentially 3 months.
3 months, correct.
So the 3 month period of time gives that leeway to work through a lot of the problems you have, including how you might line up other sources of financing. So I think the first step is to get a contingent purchase agreement in place that would be acceptable to everyone. Then go through the steps of making certain that it could be financed, that it could be purchased, that all the other problems physical problems you talked about could be worked through. So there is that leeway cushion of 3 months for a lot of conversation.
I do think there's other funding options too beyond natural resource trust funds, so we wouldn't have to put all our eggs in that basket. There's a local foundation, Carl's Foundation, that supports land acquisition. I have a conversation with them in a few weeks. And then there's a couple of national groups that also mobilize money for acquisition that the Watershed Council could explore to see if those are warm leads too. So I feel like, we can cast a broad net and feel pretty confident that costs could be recouped. And, we have a broader net than just the Natural Resource Trust Fund. But it is a bit of a leap of faith that, and that's why I wanted to share our commitment. Just keep working until we raise that money, which is what we do.
Hey, your comment, John, about the amount of money that could hold it, I don't know, for a year, I don't know if that'll work or not, I'll be honest.
Just asking.
With my conversation with Ms. Wesley, I think she wants an answer, some kind of an answer here by October the 4th. And she wants a solid answer for us from that, somehow, some kind of solid answer. And then she said before that they would be willing to give us 30 days to come up with the due diligence period of time is.
So what would you do in the due diligence period? If you had 90 days or 120 days or whatever it is, what would you do, and how much? You probably need outside help to do it. So there's costs there.
Correct. I guess Rebecca maybe can.
Yeah, I mean, this is where we would really beat the bushes to see what we feel, to increase our confidence that we could recoup costs, make sure that we had, opportunities for funding. There's also, I wonder if there is an opportunity for a cash offer that's less than asking price that would be desirable for them too. And I'm not sure who all the players would be in that. I don't know if Dexter had some capital to contribute initially. That's not the full amount, but that's some. Where we could come up with a cash offer with some mix of folks that then recoup costs over time as we're able to get reimbursements from foundations and the state. And we may be able to do that for less than the asking price, depending on if that's desirable to the current owners.
What's our reserve balance? Roughly, do you remember? You don't have to get some.
I don't know off the top of my head right now. I haven't looked at it.
Less.
Yeah. Considerably.
We can't make a commitment tonight. This is not an action item, right? This is just a discussion. And the earliest date that we could make an official commitment of any kind is our next meeting, right?
Unless you had a special meeting.
Unless we have a special meeting. How much public notice is required for it?
Anything else?
What date is it?
Is October 14th your next meeting? That's what I heard earlier. Unless they call a special meeting. I would be willing to sit down with whomever you feel like needs to be in a room this week to roll up our sleeves and really think through some of the details of this that would then give council something more tangible to react to, if that would be helpful. But it would involve, several of you from the city, along with the agent and some potential funders.
Scott?
Do we have any estimate at this point of what the site development costs would be?
No, that's what I thought was going to be the answer for the due diligence period, is figuring that out.
Right. Are there traffic concerns? Is there any liability concern for the city? Is there a precedent for the city owning property outside of boundaries? I don't know the answers to these things. Is it going to affect our insurance?
It could be brought into the city
Maybe
under
by the city under
425.
425.
Okay.
But as far as the permitting, yes, like those are things that we would figure out over the next 3 months. Make sure road commission was comfortable with it and that there were no barriers there to development. HCMA, I don't know if there's anything that needs to happen with Webster Township or whether the 425 takes care of that, but we would make sure that over those 3 months that it was a developable site for the purposes that you guys envision it. But I also think that that property has a lot of potential for, to envision, there's some latitude with what you guys would want to do with that property and what amenities you'd want to have there. It could just be a parking lot and a launch, but there's also, opportunity. It's a decent sized parcel if you wanted to have picnic benches and, some, we have boat lockers now that would help with, Councilwoman Fisher's issue where you can lock up your boat and then come into town. So there's some nice amenities that could be provided on site if there was a visioning process for it.
Webster Township part of the process?
Well, we
I don't
haven't,
know, I don't know how.
we haven't talked to them yet because we're kind of waiting to see how we were gonna move forward here, but we can, you know, we can act on a 425. But we have to bring them into the process, you know, and let them know that, but, you know, we have that with any piece of property that's in a 425. But it is in their township, they have some concern, I'm sure, about maybe some of the activity, but you gotta realize they have some concern about the activity as related to the car parking there along the road there. And you gotta realize that one of the things that happens at times, whether it's Apple Day, whether it's, you know, when the cider mill's open, or whether it's the people coming from the river, that there's a lot of adjunct parking in other areas that are not necessarily described for that. They'll park clear down by the old mill, you know, the old mill down there on Broad Street. Okay, they're still down there. We've taken away now a good parking spaces that they used to use there along the railroad tracks when we put up the border trail and the fence there. The thing that I think we have to make sure we emphasize again is that there was a discussion by the parks and they wanted it to come into the city. It's there as part of the master plan.
Well, didn't we have asked them to do that so that we would have access to trust fund money?
Yes.
That's what I thought, that we did that. Thinking this might come.
Yes, thank you, Don.
Can we answer your question? Okay, so do we want to appoint a couple of people to work with the Watershed Council and the appraiser to be named? And whoever else is thinking about this over the course of the week?
Well, if you still trust me, I'll be glad to volunteer for that, you know, as a member of the Watershed Council as well as councils. But I should have announced I was going to do it during council comments. I don't think I missed very many council meetings, but my wife has said I'm going to miss the next one. So I'm going to be on the 14th, I will not be here. So I just want to let you know that. Straight right out. I wanted to see her sister and her niece and nephew. And Carolyn and I will not be here for that. But I'll certainly be here until the 10th.
I mean, I'm happy to do it for the purpose of getting something together if nobody else is able to do that.
I think it'd be good to have a person that actually represents the council. I don't know who wants the job, but.
Who's our parks person?
Fine.
Well, there we go.
I don't have time.
Okay.
I can't do it. Not in the next 2 weeks.
What do you work from there?
Yeah.
Some of you
I wish I didn't.
Some of you have to keep our, you know, our retirement
Full
funds coming in.
security coming.
Okay?
I mean, I would like to, but I just can't commit to that right now.
If you can do Sean,
I'll
that'd
do
be
the best.
good.
Let me do the best I can.
Yeah.
I'll keep you informed. I'd like to thank both of you for coming this evening and participating.
Thanks, let us know if you have any follow-up questions.
I don't know if Bill was probably introduced, but this is Bill Kimley.
Yes, yes. He's hosted SUDS a couple times, I think.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Thanks for letting me talk.
We didn't want to throw out the number, Doug, or you'd have the whole scoop, you know. Have to come to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any more discussion on that topic for now, then? Okay.
Technically, it is just really quick. Mass Road property is sort of, I did meet with A.R. Brower, and they have a potential person interested in building on their site that they own on Mass, on the other side of Mass. It's a 7-acre parcel right by Milligan's. And we have to provide water and sewer to it if it's an industrial use in accordance with the 425. So they're talking about potentially running sewer to it. So it wouldn't really be super impactful, but it is a conversation. So they still have some due diligence of their own they're doing for their potential clients.
Industrial?
Yeah, something that Webster was on industrial. Once I find out more, information on it, but just so you know, that's out there. It could be a portion of that parcel be developed.
Any further questions? Okay, we'll do council comments with Mr. Cousins since he already did it.
I already done it, thank you very much.
See you on this next meeting.
I will miss support and apologize for
Okay,
this.
nope, that's okay.
Yeah, I just heard my name and when I go.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, Mr. Bell? Ms. Fisher?
Hudson and Baker, the gas station has got a bush that's kind of grown in the middle. Landscaping is here. Some ancillary bush is now kind of tree-like. It's a little hard to look up to the left, or to the right when you're pulling out. So you guys, when you drive by there, just take a peek at it. and see what you think.
Come down Hudson. and it's
Coming down
right-
Hudson, yep.
And it's
Baker,
right-
yep,
Make a
yep.
left. Make a
On the
left.
right,
It's on the right by the sidewalk.
yep.
Okay, I'll do that tomorrow.
Well, there's no rush, just when you're going by there.
Anybody get hurt?
Well, he's not gonna do it on the way home, he's gonna do it tomorrow.
It's a little dark out.
Ms. Jones?
Nothing too late.
Mr. Smith? Ms. Knight?
Okay, thank you.
I will repeat, October 19th, transportation, what do they call it, town hall. Representative Blazinski in Chelsea at the senior center / old high school, the old cafeteria in there, from 10 to noon. The first hour is kind of be a big group hearing from various transportation representatives, including the road commission, the WAVE, and HWPI. And then the second half of the meeting is going to be smaller groups with more feedback and interactive stuff. And that's all that I've got.
Thank you. We're back around to non-arranged participation. Is there anyone that would like to speak this evening? Again, or first time? Seeing none, I will take a motion for adjournment. So moved by Smith. Second by, what you call it, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good week, everybody.